Morez Johnson Jr. coming back right in time for the Big Ten tournament. All right, locked on Illini. Let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. My name is Verma, your host here at Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Friendly reminder, you can find me on all your favorite social medias. Do a quick search for Locked On Illini. Send me a message, say something nice, say hello, say something not so nice. Just keep it constructive. That's all I ask. Today, we have a fun episode for you. It's brought to you by Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in this episode. So breaking news, kind of. I wanted to go live with this, but I wasn't quite able to make it work. So you're going to get this news the next morning. But if you're an Illini fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is the impending return of Morez Johnson Jr. We heard this not from Morez himself, not from Brad Underwood on his radio station, which is what majority of us were predicting we'd hear from, but from the Illini social media team, who continue to be the best social media team in all of college basketball thus far. And the news was fantastic. It's got me excited. It's got so many thoughts racing around in my brain that I needed somebody else smarter than me, more calm than me, a little bit more objective than me, to come help me articulate my thoughts. And for that, of course, I'm bringing on a regular on this program. JR, thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, glad to be here. If I had to power rank Morez Johnson coming back, it's pretty high up there. This is great news for Illinois, and I'm excited about it too.
We heard that there's rumors that he might be coming back before this Big Ten tournament. And over the weekend, John Rothstein had said that he was going to talk to Brad Underwood, and Brad would let everybody know by Monday what Morez Johnson's status was. And us in our Discord, which link in the description, by the way, we were discussing it over the last couple of days, and we figured that Brad Underwood has a radio show every Monday night, and that's usually where he kind of gives off some tidbits here and there. So that's what we were kind of waiting for. I believe his radio show starts at like 7 p.m. Central, but the Illini men's basketball social team decided to take one step faster, essentially, and release the news about an hour before the radio bit even happened. And sure enough, it looks like Morez is playing. And again, this is fantastic news. There's no way I think this can be regarded as bad news. Some people are asking me. I literally got DMs as soon as the news broke. Like, Sonny, didn't he break his wrist a month ago? Can it heal that fast? I simply said, I have no idea. Honestly, I don't care. That's not my problem. Illinois got a fantastic medical team, a great staff. And so if they say he's healthy, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that he's healthy. But again, there are some downsides to this in the sense where Illinois has actually done really well since he left. He left in a very important game, that Michigan State game, where Illinois was actually winning, I believe, by the time when he got hurt, when he came down on both of his wrists and broke his wrist. And then he struggled the rest of the game. He did come back because he's a warrior like that. But ultimately, Michigan State, went on a run at the end of the game to pull away. And then we had the embarrassing loss to, was it Wisconsin after that? And then Duke right after that? Something along those lines. But after Duke, obviously we've won 3 in a row. We've had an emergence of Trey White come along. I'm rambling, JR, but it's because I am excited. Morez Johnson Jr. is coming back. I think this is great for the ceiling of this basketball team. Let me stop talking. Let you start talking. What are your thoughts real quick?
I love it. Morez Johnson coming back. I'd love it even more if they can put like one of those like casts on his hand where it's kind of like a club a little bit, and he can just he only needs one hand to rebound. The guy's a menace down there. He's absolutely gonna go after every single board. It's one of the reasons why they started falling apart in the end of that Michigan State game, because they didn't have his rebounding. Jackson Kohler turned into a rebounding machine, and a big part of it was because Morez Johnson was hurt or he was tired, whatever it was. You and I talked about that kind of to nauseam. But listen, Morez Johnson is one of the best rebounders in the Big Ten. If he was playing 40 minutes a game, stats adjusted for 40 minutes a game, he would have 6 offensive rebounds per game on average, which is just insane to think about. Right now, he's averaging just under 3, but that's also with only playing about 17 minutes per game. Now, his minutes, were altered when he's got into the starting lineup some, but still, like, if you're getting nearly 3 rebounds per game and you're not even playing 20 minutes in a game, that's pretty doggone good with what you're able to do. So it's not just that, though. His defense, with how he's able to affect shots and block shots as well. He's one of the best players, with his defensive presence down there and how much he's able to affect shots. Does foul a little bit too much, but he's a freshman. He's a big man. Like, it's going to happen. So I hope that he's been continuing to improve, even though he's not been there. Like, hopefully he's still been able to be in practice, be there with some of the changes, especially defensively with what they've been doing. And, when they get into the Big Ten tournament, you don't need to win the Big Ten tournament if you're Illinois. Obviously, you do like last year. That'd be really cool to do again. But more than anything, you just want to see good play out of him. You want to see good play with everybody else around him, because that's going to give you a whole lot better hope for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here talking about, Illinois being on a 3-game winning streak and, once again considered one of the, hottest teams in the country, a team that's starting to be mentioned again, whether with, I think Evan Maya had us going to the Final Four in his bracket that he just put out. So, but none of that happens without Morez. And so for that reason, as good as this team has been playing, in order to reach that second weekend and even maybe that third weekend, you're going to need a healthy Morez Johnson Jr. And not even that, like, we're going to talk about that in a segment or two, when the Big Ten tournament comes up. Illinois looks like they're going to be playing the winner of Iowa and Ohio State. And should they win that battle, you know what team that they could absolutely use Morez Johnson Jr. against? Maryland. Maryland really took advantage of the previous matchup when I believe it was a Visic who did not play that game. And so one of the main advantages Maryland has, not over just Illinois, but a lot of these Big Ten teams, is the 2 bigs that they can throw out there. But, if Illinois all of a sudden does have an Visic and Morez Johnson, to counteract, then all of a sudden, I'm feeling a little bit more positive about, that impending matchup. But, with Morez, it's just, I will talk about this in a second, but he doesn't need to be a starter anymore. But I just think him coming back right now, we saw Kylan Boswell. He retweeted the video of Morez coming back. I think it can kind of really energize this team. And now they essentially do have all their main guys healthy. And I saw a stat that Illinois this season is 18-4 when their roster is healthy. This is a good basketball team. This is not news to anybody. Are they inconsistent? Absolutely, they're inconsistent. But when they're healthy, they win more often than they lose. And JR, actually, right after this, let's actually talk about some of the downsides to Morez coming back. And not necessarily downsides, but questions we might have. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our locked-on college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart from top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets. These guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week are the Duke Blue Devils. John Shire's team, led by National Player of the Year candidate Cooper Flagg, just ripped through the ACC going 19-1. The Blue Devils were plus 434 points in ACC games, the largest point differential by a power conference team in league play since Kentucky in 1953-54. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say, go forth and conquer. And that's exactly what the Duke Blue Devils have done here. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out there ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of the outstanding Nissan vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. All right, friendly reminder, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We've hit 2,300 subscribers over the weekend. I'm so incredibly grateful. My goal, let's just hit 2,400 before this season's over. Let's just do it. Let's hit 2,500 before our 1-year anniversary on Memorial Day weekend. So, JR, this is fantastic news. We talked about that in the first segment, but I want to talk about how this isn't exactly going to be easy, I think, for Brad Underwood. The team is on a roll right now. And I've said this before, Morez Johnson Jr. is one of my favorite players in recent memory when it comes to the Illini. I got to watch him play in person in high school in Chicago, and he stayed committed for so long. You just don't see that very often. But it almost felt like it took his injury to have Trey White all of a sudden come back off the bench. And now Trey White is arguably one of the 2 or 3 best players on this Illini team. And I'm just curious, what are your thoughts? Does Morez Johnson just slide straight into that starting lineup, or do you think you would have him coming off the bench?
I think you have to have him come off the bench. I don't think you can mess with the starting lineup right now. Trey White, I don't think he's going to be effective. Man, he's been so good in these last few games and everything else ever since really Morez Johnson went out and Brad Underwood started trusting him more. So not just getting to the rim and some of his defense and stuff like that. He's been shooting well too. Mm-hmm. So and that's what Brad loves, right? He wants to see better shooting and more efficiency there. And Trey White right now is giving that to you more than some other guys who are supposed to be giving that to you. The guy I'm really looking at to see his minutes get cut by this is one Ben Hummerkaus, and that's not to say that Ben Hummerkaus isn't doing well or anything. Like he hit some big threes in that Purdue game, but I more so like Hummerkaus has done a good job of coming in at the 5 for some of those smaller lineups and doing a good job of providing spacing that's really opened up the lane for cutters and everything else to be able to get in there. Morez Johnson's not going to hang out at the 3-point line and affect anything there, right? Nobody, even if he goes out there, nobody's going to pay attention to him because it's just not his game. He is going to clog up the lane a little bit more on offense, and his offensive game is not as strong as his defensive game. I don't think that's a secret to anybody. It's not bad. It's just not that. So I do wonder, how is this going to work out? Because at times that lineup with Hum at the 5 has been really effective for this team. And like I said, the spacing that he provides is Underwood still going to be willing to go to that? Are we going to see 10 minutes from Morez Johnson, or are we going to see him get up to 20, 25? It's going to be really interesting to see. I hope that Brad Underwood doesn't get too obsessed with the 3-point shot and not play Morez enough, right? Like if you are in there and things are not going well, like let Morez go in there, let him rebound for you, let him play good defense for you. You're going to live with not having somebody on the outside to space for a little bit of time. It's going to be okay. Let the best guys play and things are going to work out for you.
And I think it's going to be very matchup dependent. Right. I'm with you. As much as I love Morez, I don't think you can mess with the chemistry that's going on with this basketball team right now. I would bring him off the bench. I would keep our starting lineup as is. Trey White is just playing too good to put him on the bench again after, he had such a fantastic December and all of a sudden he found himself on the bench and, he was sick. And then turns out he was not just sick. He was just in the doghouse for Brad. And I thought we were going to see the last of Trey White. But, again, this Morez Johnson Jr. injury happens and Trey comes back and he's playing some of his best ball of the season. But, Ben's an interesting guy to bring up because, again, not that I'm trying to think too far forward, that Iowa-Ohio State matchup's going to happen first. But if I did have to preview that Illinois-Maryland game that would happen in the second round, I don't know, Ben Hummerkaus is not guarding any of Derek Queen or the other guy. It's one of those where that small ball lineup is not going to work against Maryland's starting lineup. And that's where, I think Morez right now, especially because we don't exactly know the status of that wrist, you may just want to play 15 minutes or so. Let him spell Ivisic. One of the things that I was very nervous about is if Tommy either was having a bad game or if he got into foul trouble, this Illinois team had nobody to back him up. And I think right now, with the way this rotation essentially is, it's like 6 guys, maybe 7. You can add Morez to that, but keep his role minimal, 10, 15 minutes, unless he's doing what this Illinois team is excelling at right now, at rebounding. but not at the expense of a guy like Trey White. Trey White had 19 and 11 just a couple of games ago. He continues to do everything asked of a guy like him, and he's one of your veterans. But Ben, again, he's had such an up and down season as it is, and I think he's kind of settled into his role as someone who Illinois doesn't really need to count on anymore, but just play solid defense, hit the wide open three. I guess maybe I would take 5 minutes off of Trey White's minutes per game, and maybe a couple minutes off of Ben Hummerkaus, and maybe 5 minutes from Tommy Visic, and just mix and match and get to about 15 minutes for Morez. The thing is, Morez and Tommy have one of the best plus minus when it comes to defensive numbers this season, which the eye test confirms that as well. Anytime those two, they balance each other out so well, like their styles of play. So like I can see them wanting to end games with that lineup, but I'm not going to rush it. I know Morez was starting before he got hurt. I know he was playing 25, 30 minutes a game. My opinion right now, he's healthy, fantastic. This Big Ten tournament, regardless of what people say, it doesn't matter. I don't think it really matters as much to Brad Underwood anymore. I think he's built this team for the NCAA tournament, and I think ultimately that's what matters. Play him against Iowa and Ohio State. See how he reacts. See how his wrist reacts. But don't jeopardize him, because we need him for the real tournament right after.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point about Morez and Visic playing together. What I see in this, I can't back this up with any data. I don't think anybody can, but just from what I see, Visic plays more free with Morez Johnson in there, because it's not like he has to be down low. And sometimes Morez Johnson takes that, that matchup with another player and gives Visic somebody else, so he can maybe roam the perimeter more and kind of go in and out of the 3-point line and down in the key and stuff like that. So. And I think anytime you let a Visic, with how smart he is and just all the variety of things that he can do, when you just let him go out there and play free and not so much play in a role, that's just overall better for Illinois. So Morez is one of these guys that maybe he is not the X factor when he gets into the game, but he is providing support for your X factors, Riley, Visic, KJ, all those guys. He is providing that for them, and anytime you can get him in the game, while yes, a matchup is better to have for it, it just feels like the guys around him are playing better.
So, JR, let me ask you the question I answered earlier. How much does this raise the ceiling of this Illinois team having, let's just presume, 90% Morez Johnson Jr. back?
I think it raises the ceiling, if nothing else, just because it provides them with another, chess piece in a matchup, right? Like you were talking about with Maryland. Illinois would struggle without Morez Johnson against Maryland. Visic would be able to do a lot, and he is very effective, but kind of like I was saying, Visic would then kind of be stuck into a defensive hole against them. Morez Johnson provides you the opportunity for him to be on Julian Reese down low more, or put him against Derek Queen, who is more athletic, but Visic can counter that with some of his size and his lateral movement that he possesses. So I think it adds to the ceiling, not so much because, Morez is going to come in and score, 20 points a game or anything like that. And the rebounding helps too, but it does provide that piece for if you do run into a team with two bigs in the NCAA tournament. If you do run into a team that is just one of the best rebounding teams in the nation, Morez Johnson's going to be able to come in there and counter that right away.
And it's key because there's no one else on Illinois' team that really does what Morez Johnson does, right? So it's like no one can duplicate. So that's why when he was gone, it was a collective team effort. Like everyone stepped their rebounding game up and, attacking the rim every time a shot went up. And so having him back, as you said, I think you used the perfect phrase, is just another chess piece that Brad Underwood has for March. Let me know in the comment section what your opinions are. Do you want to slide Morez Johnson immediately into starting lineup? Do you want to have him ease his way in? Or do you think, this team is playing too well right now? Just give him minimal minutes until he's 100% healthy. I'd love to have your feedback. And right after this, JR and I are going to talk about the Big Ten. Attention Locked On Illini fans. Ever wish you could directly support the Illini athletes and be a part of their journey? Now you can with Roy, the NIL app that puts fans in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support the players you love. Now, with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing the Illini. With Roy, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, and get exclusive content straight from the athletes you back. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. So it's a risk-free way to show your support and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help shape the future of the University of Illinois sports. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing the Illini athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. All right, JR, things are getting fancy around here. We're using graphics now. I've got the production budget gone up as of late because we're getting so much support on this show. In front of our faces right now, if you're watching this on YouTube, is the Big Ten tournament bracket, the men's bracket. And I'm just curious, there's a couple matchups that jump out at me, but I want to know what kind of paths are you looking at? Hey, this team's got a pretty decent path, or this team is going to struggle a little bit?
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting, the bottom there. You have Purdue and Michigan both there at the bottom. These are two teams that other Big Ten teams have kind of seemed to figure out here late in the season. So it kind of works out in their favor that if Purdue is able to beat either Rutgers or USC, which I think they should be able to do that, then they face off with Michigan. And, if they win that one, that's going to be one more win to kind of catapult them forward, could give them some momentum. Michigan as well, if they get that win, that could give them some momentum going up against a team that I think probably has, one of the best opportunities to win the Big Ten tournament when you take everything into consideration, and that's Maryland. I think Illinois has a really good chance too, but like you said, Brad Underwood is kind of shifting his, maybe focus from Big Ten tournament to NCAA tournament a little bit more, and I think that's an interesting talking point. What coaches want to win the Big Ten tournament the most? I definitely think Kevin Willard's up there. I think Dusty May is up there. I think Greg Gard is probably up there, mostly because of that loss to Penn State. You also have Max Klesmit coming back, but overall, I think Maryland might have one of, if not the best paths. I think Wisconsin actually has a sneaky good path as well. If you listen to Mick Cronin talk about the Big Ten tournament, like he didn't care. Like he basically said that at his press conference. He was like, we don't hang banners for that here. Like they might get a small little, he made it sound like they're going to put a business card in the practice facility or something like that. And so for me, like if you don't care, you're not going to win. Like nobody just wins a Big Ten tournament when they don't care. These are still really good teams that they're putting out there, and we'll see what they can put together. But yeah, I think Wisconsin is probably the one, not with a double bye, that I like the most here.
What's interesting is, going along with your line of thinking, I don't think there's a coach out there who cares more than Mike Woodson. And so that's the team that I'm really kind of fascinated to see come tournament time, just because, it's funny now, they keep winning and all of a sudden you hear the whispers, like, should they bring Mike Woodson back? And he even said so in the interview after his last game, oh, maybe I shouldn't be going, or something along those lines. Indiana's a team that's just playing really, really well right now. And so, I know they've got that early game matchup against Oregon and then a potential matchup against Michigan State. But I'll be honest, I think Michigan State's checked out. Michigan State's got a lot on the line. They don't want to lose any depth that they might have. I can see them really kind of mentally checking out and have Tom Izzo get them ready for the actual tournament itself. It's funny. I actually did this bracket myself on my other show, Illini Cast, and I've talked about for the past couple of weeks that this Big Ten tournament doesn't matter for Illinois. I don't think that they care. And then I started this show on Sunday with my co-host Austin, and we filled out the bracket, and I gave little scenarios for each game. We literally went from game by game by game. And I had Rutgers as a surprise team because I figured, it's a last-ditch effort. They've got 2 top 3 NBA players. It's like their last chance to showcase their talent. I just predicted that they would win their first round game and that they'd actually beat Purdue in their first matchup. And actually, I had them beating Michigan also, just because Michigan right now, I just don't trust, right? They're just in a disarray. And for me, it was a simple matter of superstars taking over under the spotlight, that type of scenario that we've been waiting for all season long from Rutgers, and it never happened. But maybe the Big Ten tournament was going to be it. And then I talked about Maryland and Illinois, which in my opinion is going to be the matchup in this tournament, just because there's Maryland, who is arguably, I think you said it on the Big Ten Huddle earlier today, if they had like 2 or 3 more depth guys, they could have been the best team in this conference this year. And you have an Illinois team who now has something extra to play for, in the sense of trying to get Morez Johnson back and get him some game time, give him some minutes on the court. And Illinois lost to Maryland earlier. So I think there is kind of a backstory here of where Illinois may try to, put out their best effort against Maryland to kind of avenge that loss from earlier on in the season. And so I actually predicted, my ultimate prediction is whoever wins between Maryland and Illinois wins the entire tournament, essentially. Just because I said if Rutgers beats Michigan, then Illinois is playing Rutgers in the final round, or in the next round, and then Rutgers, they've been playing 3 straight days at that point, so they're going to tire out. Illinois advances, and then I believe I had Illinois beating UCLA in the final, just because I know what Mick Cronin said, but I also think it's just kind of trying to take the pressure off of his players, in the sense where, this is something they're not used to. It's a completely different environment. So I had Illinois beating UCLA in the finale, which again is hilarious, because if you're an everydayer of the show, I've been talking for the past couple of weeks that this doesn't matter. They're going to win a game or 2. Then I want them to rest. And then I just started recording a Illini cast, and I just started talking. I was like, yeah, Rutgers will win this one. And then I was like, wait, yeah, Maryland will probably beat Illinois. But wait a minute. No, Illinois has a revenge factor against Maryland. I can see Brad Underwood, wanting to beat Maryland. And so they beat Maryland, and then they have Rutgers next. Rutgers, there's another revenge factor against Rutgers. And Rutgers is tired now. They've played 3 games in a row. So somehow I convinced myself that Illinois is going to win this Big Ten tournament this year. I can't be that crazy, right?
No, you're not crazy. I think you watched the Big Ten Huddle on Sunday when we went our game by game, and Frank and I, we were talking about the Maryland Illinois game, and we both kind of agreed it's kind of like 50-50, because Illinois, really good situation for them. We've talked enough about that Illinois Maryland game, but also it's gonna be the first game of the tournament for Maryland, and like I said, I think this matters for Kevin Willard. I really think that he's put this team together to compete in the Big Ten and try to do something in it. They finished 2nd place behind Michigan State. I think that probably rubs them the wrong way a little bit, that they were that close to, at least getting a share or something like that, and they weren't able to get there. So, they weren't that close. It wasn't like it was a 1-game thing or anything, but you know what I mean? Like, rankings-wise, they were right, 2nd place. Anyway, so I do think that matters a whole lot for him, and also, too, like, as much as you were talking about Michigan State, you just don't want to get anybody hurt, like, Brad Underwood has seen the effects of losing a player all season long. So everybody's a competitor. Nobody is going to intentionally lose a game or anything like that. But is Brad Underwood going to push his guys for a Big Ten tournament that they just won last year? Like, is he going to push his guys that much for it? I don't think so. That probably sounds bad as a competitor a little bit, but at this point, like, so many of these teams, yes, they're competitors, but they're also thinking logically as well, because the NCAA tournament is the tournament that matters the most.
I see, JR, I'm one of those guys who, when the brackets come out, I just fill out one and I use it the same one for all the bracket challenges that I enter. I don't have like 3 or 4 different brackets that I check. So for me, once I live on Illini Cast, made my bracket, filled it out on Sunday, I can't back up now. But I'm telling you, I agree with you. I actually wish, I would not be sad. I want Illinois to beat their first matchup, like Iowa, Ohio State, whoever it might be. And I can see how it would be a good thing for Illinois to beat Maryland, because I think victory over Maryland could secure a 6 seed for Illinois at that point, which would be huge come tournament time. But beyond that, I don't think it matters too much. And there's a part of me, and I'd probably say a majority part of me, that wouldn't mind them just losing. And as you said, just resting resting up a little bit, give Morez Johnson a couple extra days to get healthy and just get ready for the following weekend. But JR, thank you so much for coming on today. Not that the folks don't already know, but can you let them know where they can find your work?
Yep, the Big Ten Huddle. Check us out over there. We have a basketball channel dedicated only to basketball. We have a football channel dedicated only to football. So whatever you like, I think if you're an Illinois fan, you probably are paying attention to both right now because both programs have some good stuff. And Sonny just came on and did a show with my co-host Zach Guggenheim, and
Yes.
that was live on Monday night, and that was a really entertaining show. Did a great job. So check them out there, and then tune in Tuesday night for our live stream that we have at 9 o'clock, where Zach and I will be talking all things Big Ten, and you know what? We like to trash the SEC over there a little bit too. So if you're into that, at least come over for that.
And I will say, JR is doing a really cool new thing called Big Ten After Dark. And basically, after every night that there's any Big Ten games, about a half hour after the last buzzer, he goes live and he discusses what he saw. And again, I've said this before, when it comes to Big Ten basketball, there's no better resource than JR, one of the hardest working people I've been around. And we'll be seeing you probably again on this channel very soon. Thanks, JR.
Appreciate it.
And that's it. That's going to wrap it up for today's edition of Locked on Illini. I know I'm rambling, but I'm telling you it's because I'm excited. Morez coming back, I think, gives this team the ability to reach the ceiling that I've been talking about all season long when it comes to this Illinois basketball team. And it's not just me. It's a lot of us. And I listen to your guys' comments. Some of you, the majority of you agree with me. Some of you disagree, but what a roller coaster ride of a season this has been, the ups and downs. But as I said in Monday's episode, it really does seem like right at the end of the season, the team is finally getting healthy, and all of a sudden they're playing together, they're practicing together. And, it's very typical Illinois if finally we can get healthy together right at the perfect time. I would rather it happen now than it have happened early January and the team gets sick now. No, we got that hopefully all out of the way. And now let's just see how good this team can be. On your way out, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. I appreciate all of you guys so much. We're going to have a bunch of content for you guys this week. I already have a binders full of notes that I want to go over. So it's going to be tricky for me to stick to only 5 episodes this week. So you might get an extra 1 or 2, but you won't miss it as long as you're subscribed to this channel. So until next time, I love you guys.